Good morning, welcome. Today we're going to learn 3 practical lessons from the laws of kosher. Everything in Torah has specific halachas, laws that we have to do, what it tells us, and what it means, and how we're supposed to behave. And then you also have laws that are, or every aspect of each law teaches us deeper significances about how we could serve Hashem. There's the nigla, the revealed part of the Torah, and then you have the nister, the hidden part of the Torah, which gives us interesting messages and lessons of how we could serve Hashem. But in order to understand this, we have to go a little bit some of the background. What's taking place in this parsha is it's the continuation of the war that happened with people of Midian. You see, Bilam was hired by the king of Balak, the king of Moab, to go and curse the Jewish people. And we know that the curses didn't work. Not only did he not end up cursing us, but he ended up giving us some of the greatest brachas, some of the greatest blessings ever. So, after 3 failed attempts of trying to curse us, he gave Balak a different idea. He said, if you want the Jewish people to suffer, if you want them to be punished, get them to do averis, get them to sin. Get them to sin with the daughters of Moab, and if that happens, and it will lead to avodah zarah, idolatry, and adultery, they will end up getting Hashem so upset that you're not going to need curses. And that's what he did. Now, after that happened, indeed, Hashem was upset, and there was a plague that broke out, and 24,000 Jewish people died as a result. 24,000. And by the way, these people were children of the F.R.E.E. They were children, those that died, of those that went out of Mitzrayim, which were really Egyptians. But when they saw that the Jewish people were winning over the Egyptians and were leaving, they said, hey, we want to join. They weren't sincere to become Jewish. They just wanted to be saved. And during the time of the desert, they really caused problems. They were instigators when it came to the Egel Hazav, to the golden calf. They were instrumental in complaining against Moshe Rabbeinu multiple times and getting the Jewish people to misbehave. And it so happens that the ones that ended up dying from this plague after sinning with the daughters of Moab were descendants of these F.R.E.E. But after that plague, Hashem commanded to go to war, to defend ourselves, to really take revenge from those people, the nation that tried to hurt us in such a terrible way. And after we won that war, there was a lot of loot. There were a lot of possessions that we were allowed to have. And here we have a very interesting law, a mitzvah, that we're taught. When you come back from war and you bring with you dishes, right? Pots, pans, bowls, forks, and so on. Are you allowed to use these dishes or not? Now, we have a mitzvah called Kosher. The food that we eat has to be kosher. And briefly, for those that are watching online, by the way, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share it on Facebook, like it, and so on. And welcome to ask questions. A brief overview. There's several aspects to kosher. Firstly, we have foods that are permitted and foods that are prohibited. Okay? So certain animals are kosher animals. If it has 2 signs, which are they chew their cuds and they have split hoofs, if they have both of these signs together, that would be kosher. If not, it's not kosher. That makes it a kosher animal. Secondly, the way it's prepared has to be done in a proper way. If the animal was shechted, it was slaughtered, then it was salted to remove the blood, and then was properly prepared that you take out certain parts of the animal, certain fats. It's not a health issue, it's a kosher issue. Certain parts are not allowed to be used. When you get those things out, now it would be considered kosher. Then you have other foods that are not kosher. Certain fish are not kosher. A fish, in order for it to be kosher, has to have fins and scales. And if it doesn't have fins and scales, it's not kosher. Now, all of these aspects of what makes an animal kosher or not kosher is only one component. Then you have foods that can't be mixed together. You cannot mix milk and meat together, or milk products and meat products together. If you mix them together, then they become non-kosher. But the third element, and this is what I want to focus on today, is dishes. If you took any non-kosher food, let's say it was a chicken, and the chicken is kosher, but the chicken was not slaughtered the proper way, which, by the way, is the least painful for an animal. That's not why we do it. We do it because Hashem said so, but it happens to be that the shechita is the least pain for the animal of any other method of killing it. And when we take this chicken, and it was not slaughtered properly for whatever reason, or the blood wasn't removed, and blood is forbidden to eat, and then it was cooked in a pot, chicken soup, not only are you not allowed to eat it, but that pot is not kosher. And anything that you're going to cook later in that pot is also going to be non-kosher. Because when a pot cooks, it absorbs the heat of the cooking process, absorbs within it certain parts of the food wherever it's cooking. And the next time it cooks, and the next many times that it cooks, it spits out a little bit into the next dish that it's cooking. It spits out a little bit of the first food that it absorbed. So not only do we have to make sure that our food is kosher, but even that the dishes that we use are kosher. And that's whether you mixed milk and meat together in the same pot, or you used a certain food item that's not kosher in a pot, or in a frying pan, or with a fork, a plate, whatever it may be. It could absorb the unkosher food, and then it spits it out. It comes out in the next item that's being used in heat and so on. Which is why it's so important. Some people think it's only salad, or it's only pasta, or it's only something. Who cares? It's kosher. It doesn't matter just the food. It also matters the process. What dishes were used, what knives were used, what cutting boards, what pots. All those things. They may even say, hey, it's only vegetables, right? There's no cooking here. There's no pot. But that vegetable, is it used with a kosher knife? The cutting, is it used on a kosher cutting board? So many elements that go on here. So the Jewish people come back from war, and they have a lot of dishes that they took from the enemy, which in the rules of a war, they're allowed to take them. But Hashem told Moshe to tell Elazar, who's now the new Kohen Gadol, because Aaron HaKohen passed away, which, by the way, his yahrzeit is this week, Rosh Chodesh Av. He passed away. And his son is the new high priest, the Kohen Gadol. He's coming to the Yidden with a special message from Hashem. And the message is as follows: that all of the dishes that you have, everything that you've taken, you can't just use, okay? It has to be koshered. Because the dishes were used by that other nation for non-kosher food. You can't just say, okay, now it's mine, now I own it, now I'm only going to use it for kosher food, right? And the Torah tells us, this is the chukas ha-Torah, this is the law of the Torah, which chukah is a word, which means a law about the type of law which you don't understand, because many laws, they make sense, right? Don't steal, it's a law which makes sense. Honor your parents, or don't kill, is a law which makes sense. But kosher is one of those mitzvahs which we don't understand why we do them. We don't. There are many nice explanations, and we'll see some of them, but they're not the reason. It's a law which the mind can't understand. Why, if I mix milk and meat, is it bad? Is someone getting hurt? Is it something negative? But Hashem said it. It's Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's mind, Hashem's thinking, and we can't understand the real reason behind it. But he said like this: if it's gold, if it's silver, if it's copper, if it's iron, if it's tin, if it's lead, whatever types of material, metals are used to make these pots, you need to kosher it. Well, the way that it's koshered, it depends how it became non-kosher. If it became non-kosher through fire, then you make it kosher through fire. And if it became non-kosher through water, then you make it kosher through water. In kashrus terminology, it's called libun or hag'olah. Okay, libun is the torching way with fire, and hag'olah is the water way through boiling hot water. That's how you make it kosher. But the way that it became the way it was used, the way it became non-kosher, that's the way how it's going to become kosher again. Okay, so if it's a frying pan and it's used for dry things for heat, then that's going to become kosher through taking fire and making it very, very hot, like white hot, or red hot, depending on the material. It becomes so hot. And during that process, all of the non-kosher that was absorbed through frying or baking comes out in that heat. And now it's kosher, and you can use it for whatever you like. And the same applies if you, let's say you had a pot that was used to boil soup. And through the boiling process, the walls of the pot now have non-kosher soup in it. What you do is you take a big pot of boiling water, and the water boils and boils and boils, and then you dip the pot inside, and the heat of that water and the process of the boiling gets all the non-kosher food that was absorbed in the pot. It gets it out into the water, and you just rinse it off, and now it's kosher. But we know this halacha, we know this law from this week's parsha, because Elazar told the Jewish people, this is what you're going to do with the non-kosher utensils. So the way it comes in is the way it comes out. Now, I want to share several halachas, several lessons that we learn from the concept of kosher, from this process of koshering. Number one, in halacha and Shulchan Aruch, it's called kiboiloi kach piltoi. The way that it absorbs, that's the way it goes out. Now, first of all, and this is number one, the inside matters. People think the wall of the pot, who cares what's inside, right? What matters is that now the food that the pot is cooking or that the pan is baking is kosher. What's inside doesn't really matter. And the truth is that it does matter. It matters very much, because what's inside does make a difference. Or to use the words of Hasidus, the pnimius, the inward part of a person, makes a difference. Just because on the outside you're behaving in a certain way, but inside you're thinking or feeling inappropriate or not good, that doesn't make it okay. It doesn't only matter what's going on the outside, it also matters what's going on the inside. It doesn't only matter what goes on the outside of the pots, it also matters what's inside the walls of the pots. And that's why we have to be so careful about the koshering of it, because insides matter. And this is something which talks about in Tanya very, very much. The main book of Chassidus tells us from the Alter Rebbe, and everyone should learn it, tells us the importance of a person working on their machshava and dibur, not just their maisa, right? What goes on in your mind, what you think about a person could say, I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm not saying anything wrong, I'm just thinking something wrong. Even thinking is a problem, because it's the inside, and the inside matters. Or a person says, I'm just saying it, I'm not doing it. Inside of a person matters. That's the difference between a tzaddik and a beinani. A tzaddik does everything right, and so does a beinani. The difference is that inside the beinani, he wants to do the wrong thing. He doesn't do it, but he wants to. The tzaddik doesn't even want to. His Yetzer Hara doesn't come and say, oh, maybe we'll talk in the middle of the shir. And maybe everyone hears the beinani, because no one's listening to the Yetzer Hara. We're just learning. But the idea is that the inside matters. And that's lesson number one of kashrus, is that why do you have to go and torch it or boil it in hot water? Because once upon a time there was non-kosher, because the inside of the walls of the pot now have absorbed non-kosher food. So if you are very nice on the outside, but you're not so nice on the inside, which means you're thinking bad about another person, or you're feeling bad about another person, or you hate someone inside, it's not good. You have to fix that as well. Lesson number 2. If you could absorb, you could extract. Don't think that because I'm a pot and I took within myself something non-kosher, now it's too late. I'm treif. I cannot be good anymore. A person should never say that, because when we learn from kashrus that even if a pot was used for many, many years for something that's not kosher, right? And it's the actual pot, you can't use it for kosher. There's a way to get rid of it. If it went in, it could go out. If something is negative that comes into a person, then it could come out of the person. There's a story about a yid that came to Reb Nachman of Breslov, and he told him that I ruined so many things already. I ruined so much of my life already. I'm a bad person, he said. And he told him that if you believe that you can mess up, then you have to believe that you could fix. If it's possible to ruin, it's possible to fix. If you could break something, then you could reconstruct it. Which, by the way, it's much easier to break things and destroy things than it is to make things, right? It's easier to ruin than it is to fix. It's hard to fix, but it's doable. That's what koshering dishes in this week's parsha teaches us. That if you could make it non-kosher, whether it was by mistake or on purpose, or it wasn't even yours, but it could be fixed. And in your own life, a person should never say, I tried, or I made a mistake so many times, or I did the wrong thing for so long. You always could fix these things. There was once a story that happened with a family of two big tzaddikim. The first one was the Heilige Ruzhiner. His grandson was getting married to the daughter of the tzaddik, the Tzvi of Rimenov. Okay, so the Ruzhiner's grandson was getting married to the daughter of the Rimenover. And before they got engaged, the two tzaddikim were talking. And the Heilige Ruzhiner said to the tzaddik of Rimenov, he said, I always maintained that yichus, lineage, is very important. It's very important. Who is your elder Zayda? Do you have any holy special people in your family? Maybe your great-grandfather was a very special yid, or your great-great. Tell me, he said, about your... Well, I'll tell you about my family first, he said. And he told him that my elder Zayda was the Magid of Mizrich, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, a very, very great tzaddik. My grandfather, he said, was his son of Avram the Malach. You ever heard of Avram the Malach? The son of the Magid. He said he was a very, very great tzaddik. And my great uncle was Reb Nachum of Chernobyl, the Chernobyl Rebbe. And my uncle was his son, Reb Matala. And these are all my relatives. So my grandson is going to marry your daughter. You should know that my grandson comes from a very, very special place. He had a lot of great ancestors that were big tzaddikim, big rebbes, very special people. Now tell me, he told the Rimenover, tell me, what's your lineage? Where do you come from? Who's your elder Zayda? Which rebbes do you have in your family that your daughter is obviously a descendant of? And he said, I'll tell you. I was orphaned, he said, at a very young age. I was 5 years old, he said, when his father and mother passed away. And his relatives, they gave him to be an apprentice by a tailor. An apprentice is somebody who learns how to do a certain job. So there's a very good tailor. And as a child, he went to live with this tailor. And he would learn how to be a tailor. He would help in the shop. He would tell him, bring me those buttons. And when he was a little older, he would say, okay, sew these buttons. This is how you fix a hole. This is how you make a patch on the elbow. And so on and so forth. And he showed him how to do all these things. And he said, and he taught me a very important lesson. He said, if you could ruin something, you could fix it. And he would take a pair of pants that was ripped, and he said, you see this hole? Someone made a hole in this. If it's ruined, you could fix it. And that's where I come from, he said. That was the lesson that I grew up on, that if something is messed up, something is not good, and you made a mistake, you did a boo-boo, you could always fix it. You could always correct it. And when the Heilige Ruzhiner heard that, he said, let's get married to this family, because that lineage is so important that a Yid knows that if you did something wrong, what's it called? You could do tshuva. If someone made a mistake, someone did an avera, you could always fix. And that's lesson number 2 of Kosher. So what was lesson number 1? That the inside matters. And number 2 is, if it became unkosher, you could make it kosher. It's possible to correct it. It's possible to make it kosher again. You could fix a problem. You could do tshuva. Never say that, oh, it's too late, it's gone. Number 3, how do we kosher dishes? Very important halacha when it comes to kosher. The way that it became non-kosher, that's the way that it becomes kosher. Okay? Which means like this. Let's say somebody is very scared always. They're always afraid. Or let's say someone is very shy. And they have a hard time to speak up. Or they're not confident. They have a certain issue. There's different ways that it's dealt with. Sometimes a therapist will talk to a person and try to get to the bottom of it. What caused that problem? They want to find the issue. Okay. And they talk about things that may have happened a long, long time ago. And maybe they heard something scary or they experienced some kind of traumatic situation. And it's causing them to react now very, very sensitively to anything which they hear a noise, right away they get scared. For example, if somebody was a soldier at war, sometimes they have a certain condition when they come back. Every time they hear a bang, they get all scared because they think maybe that bang is an enemy shooting, because they were in the battle or at war or hiding somewhere, and there was real noise that they heard, and it's very hard for them now not to be scared of any noise. Okay, so one of the ways that people fix things is they try to go back and find the reason that caused them to be so scared in the first place, and they work to understand that. And when they understand what the reason is, they say, okay, now when I hear a noise, I'm going to remember that it's not really from that, but it's just the noise of a pot that fell or someone that's peeling an egg, and it's making noise. But it's not causing, it's fine, but it's not causing, it's not really an issue to be afraid of, right? It's okay. The problem with that thing is that sometimes you'll never find the real reason that made a person scared, or the real reason why something's bothering a person. And you talk about the past and the past and the past, and sometimes you bring back those memories, and now you forgot about them, and now you're starting to bring them up again, and it's making it even more scared. Maybe we shouldn't go to the back, right? The other way of doing this is people say, let's just ignore what happened and only focus on the future. Forget about what happened. Just remember that don't be scared, don't be scared, don't be scared. Okay? Or maybe something happened in the past. Let's not go there. Let's try to forget about it. Let's not even talk about it. And going forward, everything should be fine. And let's focus on positive and doing good things and so on. So they say, don't look at the past. Just say, from now on, I'm going to be brave. From now on, when I hear a noise, I'm going to say, I'm not scared. And they look at the future. The problem with that way is that maybe there is something really, really that's scary that happened to them. And if they don't remember or figure out how to convince themselves that this was just a thing of one situation and not every noise is scared, then they'll never get out of it. It's always going to bother them. So there's different ways of doing it. You can either talk about the problem or you can ignore the problem. Both of them have certain issues with them. They may not solve the problem. So there's a third way, and this is what we learn from Kosher. The same exact way how a person created this problem, how now they're all scared and everything, that's how they're going to fix it, which means like this. The next time a person is in a situation where we're using the example of being afraid, where they see a scary thing and they're about to become fearful, they should say, I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to be careful. I'm not going to be scared, because I'm going to remember in this example that Hashem is in charge and he's watching over us, and I have no reason to be afraid. And everything's going to be fine. I'm going to do the right thing, and things will work out okay. And now, when there's a situation that came in that was scary, at that moment when it comes again, I'm spitting it out. Just like in kashrus, how did the papa come on kosher? The same way that it went in, right? Because it was very hot. It was non-kosher food, and it made the pot unkosher because the inside matters, right? Now we're saying when the person, next time the pot is boiling hot, you could use that same temperature and the same experience and get rid of the non-kosher. How could that be? The same method that made the pot unkosher is going to make it kosher? Exactly. That's how it works also in ourselves. If something caused a person to, let's say, make a mistake because they were in a situation and it caused them to make a mistake, that situation could happen again, maybe in a different way. Let's use an example for some of the boys that are sitting here. Let's say somebody gets you upset and you went and you hit them because they were not nice to you, right? And that's wrong and you feel bad. Well, how can you fix that? The next time that someone gets you upset, you say, I'm not going to hit them. Now you fixed what you did last time. The same way that you made the problem, that's the same way it'll go away. Or in our example, for the adults, when someone has a negative experience in life, the way that they get rid, or a potential way, a good way, a lesson of kosher to get rid of this problem, of this trauma is that when they experience it again at a different level, they say, I'm beyond that now. I don't let that affect me the same way that it did. And by doing that, they could undo a traumatic effect that happened a long time ago, because now they're proving to themselves that they're beyond that. And this is what the Rambam says regarding tshuva. What's real tshuva? Real tshuva is not that only that you said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again, and you did charata, right? You regretted what you did. Real tshuva is when you say, that when you have an opportunity to do it again, you don't do it. The same situation happens all over again. And this time you say, wait, I did tshuva, I don't go there. So in summary, what are the three things we learn from kashrus? Number one, inside matters. Number two, if it could get ruined, it could get fixed. The process of koshering shows you that you could fix things, you could change things, you could correct it. And number three, the way that it's corrected is the way that it got ruined in the first place. The same type of heat that you use to make something unkosher, whether it was a water heat, like a soup or a food with liquid, you're going to kosher it through hag'ala, through water, through boiling water. And if it came unkosher through libun, then you are going to make it kosher through torching, through very hot, through hot fire. Because the way that something got ruined, that is where the solution is. That's how you're going to solve it. That's how you're going to do tshuva. Thank you very much for joining. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes. Let's do questions now.
Um,
I'm going to repeat the questions to those that are watching.
What does the fact that what does the thing that came in, what does the thing that made it unkosher have to do with the fact of how it's going to become kosher?
It's a very good question.
Two things have in common.
And when you're going to learn smicha, Meretz Hashem talks about the ways that things become kosher. There's a term called kiboyle kach polter, the way that it swallows in, the way that it absorbs. That's the way how it spits it out. That's the even the scientific mechanism of how you could get flavor or any matter that came into some kind of material, in this case the wall of a pot. The way that it's going to physically come out is the same way that it went in, through that same temperature of heat or the same method of heat will take it out. Physically, that's how it works.
Okay, also...
1 second, what?
The same situation.
The same situation, the same method, yes.
Let's say, okay, fine. But then also, let's say you get something happens. It's not even after you fix it. It won't always be perfect. Again, let's use the example from the story. Let's say, with a tailor. Let's say you get a hole. Let's say you get a hole in. Let's say someone gets a hole in his clothes. Once he mends it, you're still gonna be able to see that once ripped. But let's say someone.
But you know what else you're gonna see? It's true. You're gonna see that it was ripped, but it's gonna be much stronger in that part. Like Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that when a string gets ripped, right? We have a rope connecting us to Hashem, right? Every mitzvah has a rope. When you retie that rope, it's stronger where the tie is than where there was no tie in the first place. So it's not the same, but it could be even stronger. If someone has a hole in their pants and they put a patch on it, that it may not be as nice, but the patch is much stronger and it's not going to rip as easy as it did when it was brand new.
Okay, fine, but also,
okay, any other questions?
Yeah. You mentioned in the beginning that Gila was advisor of Balak, king of Moab.
Right.
Later on, we learn Tzor et Midyanim. So